And we're live. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining Human-Centric Automation. This webinar is hosted by Techopian and along with our colleagues at Super.AI. I'm going to hand over to our editor-in-chief, Mr. Michael Baxter. He's going to take it from here and introduce everybody. But thanks very much, and we'll kick it off from here. Michael, away you go.
Thank you very much, Rob. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody, wherever you are in the world. So my name is Michael Baxter, as Rob just said, and I'm the editor of Techopian. And today I'm joined by Brad Cordova and Manish Ray from Super.AI and my business partner, Rob Hughes. And we will be finding out why humans are AI's dirty little secret. We're going to be talking a little bit about the wisdom of crowds and the wisdom of crowds when those crowds involve AI and humans. And we'll be talking about the combination of humans and technology and why it is better than one or the other. You know, it's better to have humans and technology than just humans or just technology. And how this combined with processing power, how this combined processing power can reduce risks and increase potential breakthroughs. And we'll also be talking something about string theory as well. So, Brad, maybe you could take this opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us all about string theory while you're at it.
Yeah, well, that may take another few months to talk through, but yeah, I actually started as a physicist and mathematician doing string theory. I figured out it's kind of a fraud, or I don't actually think that's what explains the universe. It's very elegant mathematics, and the most brilliant people on the entire planet are working on it. And so there's a lot of great stuff going on, but I wanted to do something more practical. So I went to MIT to do my PhD in artificial intelligence, and my research involved amalgamating symbolic AI and machine learning. And then, yeah, during my PhD, I founded a company called TrueMotion. We built the AI backend for some of the biggest mobility companies around the world, like Lyft and Progressive Insurance. We scaled that to a unicorn, and recently merged with another company. And then I founded Super.AI, and a lot of the confluence of ideas that came from my research at MIT and TrueMotion were kind of the genesis of Super.AI. So excited to chat with you guys today.
Thank you very much, Brad. And Manish, could you say a little bit about your good self?
Yeah, myself, Manish Rai. I've been in Silicon Valley for over 20 years in various product and marketing roles. Last 5 years, I've been living in automation world, worked closely with your CEO, Rob, at Automation Anywhere, where amongst other things, I launched IDP product, IQBot, which had a really good run, and it's become one of the leaders in that space. And I'm really, the reason I'm here at Super.AI is because I saw in these last 5 years the massive amount of unstructured data that enterprises are sitting on it. I mean, I was just looking at a stat there in 2022, 100 zettabytes of data is expected to be created, and we are creating a ton of data. But the key is to leveraging this data to deliver better customer experience, to further drive down cost, and to delight your customers. And I think that's where moving to a human-centric automation, which can really help enterprises go and transform themselves.
Thank you, Manish. So if we could just, Rob, do you want to say a little bit? I nearly forgot you there. Do you like to introduce yourself?
That's okay. Hi, I'm Rob Hughes. I've co-founded Techopian with Michael Baxter, who actually does all the work and all the writing and all the research on this stuff. And I'm lucky enough to get to speak to very smart people who've done amazing things as a result of it. Prior to that, as Manny said, he and I worked together at a company called Automation Anywhere, and we were involved in the RPA space, which is more structured information, I suppose, movement across businesses. And prior to that, I worked in the analyst community for around 15 years, and again, surrounded by smart people, and just sat and listened for a while. So that's me.
Okay, so let's first of all, shall we identify the problem, or at least one of the main challenges that businesses need to solve with technology, and which is the problem of unstructured data. And it's been estimated that around 80% of all data is unstructured. And right now, the way we deal with unstructured data is we use those things, I think they call them human beings. So human beings, they have to manually type in the data, and that can be a problem because people get what is it now? What is it people do? Oh, that's right, they lose concentration and they make mistakes. So Brad, how big a problem is this?
So Manish and you made some stats, but the problem statement is simple, as you said, is most data in the world, you mentioned 80% of the data in the world is unstructured data. And I think what's even more profound is the growth rate. If you look at the growth of unstructured data, because we all have cell phones and take pictures, there's IoT devices, it's growing exponentially, where the amount of structured data that can fit into a spreadsheet that machines can understand by default is, if you put it on the same graph, it almost looks flat, but it's growing linearly. And so the problem statement is simple. Most data is unstructured data, but the problem with unstructured data is you can only use it if you give it structure, because most of the automation tools out there, like robotic process automation, robotic desktop automation, intelligent document processing, can only function on structured data. Some things can function on semi-structured data. So you have this bifurcation of data in unusable data and usable data. And the problem is most data is unusable. And so that's what we solve at Super.AI, but that's really the problem here. It's a simple statement, really difficult to actually solve.
Okay, Manish and Rob, do you have anything to add to what Brad said?
I was just looking at a stat that every day we create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. I mean, that's just staggering. As Brad pointed out, right, with a camera and a video recorder in our hands in enterprises, we are collecting a lot more data and bringing in all sorts of formats: audio, video, images. Enterprises spend $120 billion a year on paper in documents, right? So these are all massive and staggering numbers out there. So what I like to call is, since I live in Silicon Valley and close to a fault line, I think enterprises today are living on a data fault line, and the pressure of this data is building. And they are one massive event away from being, marginalized, a startup that figures out how to make that sense of data better to deliver a better experience to their customers or at a lower cost. And that's the challenge facing enterprises. So they need to be moving now. It's not sufficient for them to just make sense of structured data. People may be feeling happy that I've deployed 100 bots. I've automated my processes with RPA to streamline my processes. But imagine the art of the possible. What you could do if you make similar sense of unstructured data, how much of a transformational experience you can deliver to your customers. And that's the opportunity out there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think when we think about automation and RPA specifically, I see it as the plumbing. It's there to be able to move information from disparate systems, basically. One system doesn't talk to the other, they don't speak the same language. RPA has a good linkage, a good pipe between those two disparate systems. But it's all the data that's just lost in the ether that we're not learning from. And I think that's the real opportunity, is what could we really do with all of this information if we could process it faster, if quantum computing takes off. And again, Brad, you'll know more about this than me as to whether or not there's some truth in that, but I'm hoping that, our processing power starts to speed up again as Moore's law starts to slow down. And what we do with all of that data is much more important than just having the plumbing in place. The infrastructure is and the potential to build that infrastructure around businesses is becoming apparent, and it's being built. It's just how to access all of the hidden gems that are still in them hills, as it were, when it comes to nuggets of data, gold, I suppose. So that's my contribution, Michael.
Okay, so there's a secret. There's a little bit of a secret which I'm going to let you all into today. I don't know whether I should whisper it, but AI has a secret. It has a dirty secret, and it's human beings. So, Brad, why are humans AI's dirty little secret?
Yeah, so there's fundamental reasons, sociological reasons, but I think fundamentally, if you look at any production AI today, or AI that's actually doing any value, it was trained by a human. Even all of Google's search algorithms, there's a lot of marketing that we use these massive deep neural networks, but behind the scenes, if you look at any AI system, it's humans teaching the machines. And the reason is simple. We as humans were engineered or evolved, whatever your beliefs are, to structure unstructured data. So our eyes, our retinas, they have rods and cones, and they take incoming photons and epithelial cells, and they convert it into electrical signals, which our brains can operate on. So they structure this unstructured data. Or our ears, they have cochleas, which essentially perform a Fourier transform on sound waves and convert them into electrical signals. So we are the ideal creatures so far to structure unstructured data, because every sense organ we have converts it into structured data. And so the challenge is how do you do something similar for AI? How do you create these quote unquote sense organs to convert unstructured data into structured data, so that then you can use them in an effective way? So that's the core of why people use humans, and also the human brain's one of the most impressive things we've ever known about in the universe. And so the challenge is how do you take all these functionalities and be able to allow artificial intelligence to do that? And we have a solution to that as well. I'm happy to give you a little demo if you want.
Yes, please.
Okay. Great. So I will share my screen, and I will do a demo on documents, since that's what we were talking about. I assume you can see this.
Yes, just a word to people watching this. If you could maximize your screen, you'll probably see it that much more clearly. Sorry if that's a bit obvious.
So just as a bit of context, what we did at Super.AI is we built a protocol. And what's a protocol? Well, a protocol is a language or a set of rules that different entities that use a protocol need to follow. So, for example, the internet has a protocol, HTTP, UDP, all these things that allow computers to talk together, which make the internet. So we built a protocol which allows AI to talk together. And so as a result, we can build generic AI applications. And one of these is processing documents. And so every document processing application starts with the customization phase. And so we have pre-trained field detectors and pre-trained document detectors out of the box that you can use. So for example, if this data program classified the document as a bill of lading, well, then it would automatically extract things like company, agent numbers, signature, etc. But if it was a warrant, we work with some government agencies, it would extract the warrant number. There's many of these. If it's a claim form, if it's an invoice, it would extract things like the invoice ID. In this case, if it works correctly, it would classify it as an ID and extract things like the country. And of course, you can delete these or add fields or add completely new fields. And so the first thing here, which is really important, is we don't just take a machine learning model and try to make the best quality. We take AI models and build AI applications. And what's important is to optimize for this triangle of quality, cost, and speed, this triad. So maybe in order to get a business ROI, which in the end is most important, well, I need to hit a cost, let's say that's 9 cents or even less, or maybe I need it to be a certain speed, or maybe I need it for some reason to be really, really high quality. And so each of these selections will allow you to choose different workers to work on this. And so today in the world of AI, if you want to train an AI, well, you need to go hire a bunch of humans to label it and then train an AI. These are disparate processes, but it doesn't make sense because a human's taking some input to an output, an AI is taking an input to an output. Even bots, like regular expressions, are taking inputs to outputs. And so we developed this mathematical model that they all work together in the same place, and I'll show you how that works. So let me just process this ID. So the first step here is that you take the input from some database, whether it's your RPA system, your on-prem database, an API, and you input it into what we call this data program. And what a data program is you could think of it like an assembly line. So Henry Ford taught us, hey, don't build the car in one step. Have one simple task where you put a wheel on a car, have another simple task where you put a mirror on a car, and this turns out to be really powerful. And so we do the same thing. We decompose a complex task into simpler tasks, for example, classification, detection, transcription, and fuzzy matching, which allows you to match dates to, like, okay, is this date a birth date or is it an expiration date? And so now let's execute this workflow. So the first step is a classification. And what happens first is you take this simple task of classification and you route it to different workers. In this case, it's routing to a human, a BPO, an AI, and a software bot. And then what happens is we wait for these 3 workers to process the output. And of course, the AI comes back pretty quickly. Next, the human does it, and then the software bot. And in this case, they all said, hey, this is an ID, which is correct. But they don't all need to give the same answer. And oftentimes, let's say you're using 20 different machine learning models, well, they may all give different answers. And so what we have is a combiner to combine all these outputs of the workers into a single output, so that you can, and it does it in a smart way that if you trust the worker more, it'll weigh it higher. But at this stage, you have a single output, which in this case, unsurprisingly, is an ID for the classification. But another value here is that you need to guarantee the quality. It's 2022. We expect clear ROIs from our AI applications, not just science projects that we write on our website. Oh, we're an AI company. And so there's over 150 different quality assurance checks that we look at the quality of the data, for example. Maybe you uploaded really noisy data. We look at the quality of the workers, the task. We have an anomaly detector. So maybe a human answered too quickly or too slowly. Doesn't mean they're wrong, but that's surprising if they're just clicking through it or they're confused. So it took them a long time. And then the final step of this task is we train an AI on this classification task so that eventually you don't need to use humans at all. You can just use AI. So I will go fast through some of these. Now there's detection, transcription, fuzzy matching, and so that finished. But if we look just on this task, it started out as around 13% automated, meaning 13% of the tasks were handled by AI or software. And then each round of training here increased automation. So now even just after the single data point, it's already 60% automated. And similar with the cost, because we're going to route to more now to AI in the future, and the time that decreases, but also the quality increases. And so this was a brief look at the platform. I don't know if there's any questions, but that's roughly how this platform works and how we implement the protocol. That's
amazing. And I think, I keep thinking of the term travel adapter, right? Where you need electricity wherever you go, and you need good quality electricity wherever you go. And this allows you almost to plug in electricity and allows you to plug in the best electricity available at the time, because this world is moving so quickly within our I'm talking about our technology world is moving very, very quickly, and small companies just don't get the opportunity to go to market either. A lot of technology companies with great ideas and great tech just disappear because they're not go-to-market people, or they don't have those skills. This almost allows them a way to get to market without having that go-to-market function. And I suppose it de-risks from a purchasing point of view, because the relationship, I take it, is with Super.AI. It's not with the end user. So it's almost that platform layer in between that allows you to buy best in breed technology, but doesn't have the risk of saying, I don't know if this company will be around, or this tech will be around in 2 years time, and I've implemented it, because you're using it when you need it and as a service rather than an implemented tool. So really, really interesting. And you mentioned the 150 points that you have to check on these companies, or to check on the tech. Does that happen? Is that a standard process? Do you work with companies? Like, did you go out and look for them, or how do they apply to you and get in touch? How do you find this new tech to solve these complex problems?
So I think, just to underscore what you mentioned, we call this the unified AI platform, and we're seeing this trend a lot. So I mean, even just with our iPhones, all you need to do is invest in an iPhone, and there's new apps developed every day. There's so many different apps, whereas before we'd have to go invest in a calculator. Well, now I just have a calculator on my phone, or a camera. I just use the camera on my phone. I don't need to buy a separate camera. So or if you see, like, even the Tesla cars, as long as you have the hardware for self-driving, eventually they release updates every week or every month. And so the power is also now with this unified AI platform, you can have any AI application running on this. All you need to do is buy the iPhone, and now you can have any application running on there. So it's kind of the AI iPhone. And so before you needed to buy document extraction from a certain company, or redaction or classification. Now this can all happen in a single place. And then it's future proofed, because it's easy just to make an update or whatever. And then, as you saw, you can use any worker. So you can use AI from Amazon or Google or Microsoft, or open source, any human. And so as we've seen in the field, if you lock into a vendor which is using their own proprietary AI model, well, probably tomorrow or the next month, there's going to be someone smarter who came along who built a better model. And we're seeing this all the time. And so that's why we built it this way. So you can plug in any model you want at any time. And so you're always using the best. And a consequence of that is you're really future-proofing yourself.
Absolutely. And with regards to the people, I suppose companies can use their own people to plug into, because it's a task internally. But I suppose there's almost an opportunity. I'm kind of thinking outside the box here a little bit, but there's almost an opportunity to crowdsource skills from areas that high level skills, to be able to contribute and just increase the accuracy of the AI. And the more you do that, the better the AI gets, the more it learns as a result. And yeah, it seems to be very fulfilling if for both users and buyers, if we can get that right. It's really interesting combination.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We have a hierarchy of humans. Like, maybe there's a lawyer or a doctor we have to use every once in a while, but they're going to be expensive. So that's what the router does. Is if the task is simple, we'll either route to an AI or software, or let's say a cheaper human. And if we need something that's an expert, well, you can use a single expert, or you can use many experts and then combine them into a single output, which gives you the highest accuracy. But of course, it's the most expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I as I'm thinking, Brad, and you've been talking, and Rob, you've been talking, is when you look back in the journey 5 years ago, when a lot of IDP space started, we were looking at one piece of unstructured data, which was documents. Even though it's massive, 40 billion opportunity, it's like right below the tip of the iceberg, right? You're handling, and mostly semi-structured or structured documents for most parts, which is a very small piece of the problem. And what the solutions ended up doing is having either their proprietary OCRs underneath or fixed set of OCRs. the human part of it was an afterthought, right? So you have to source the humans from in-house, put them, and then you have to tune the systems. And most will say, hey, you can define the confidence level at the field level. But a business user wants outcome. They don't want to, what does 80% confidence level at a field level mean to a business user? Nothing. He said, what is going to be the outcome for me? And nobody does that. And what happens if the human is out on vacation for a week? Like, are you going to have escalation, routing? What if I don't have the skill in-house? So there was a massive problem over there. We have solved this by building sort of, think about a mechanical Turk of users, but focused on business AI, not just generic any skill, but these people who can solve, look at the business data and help you. And could it be a specialized lawyer? And we'll help you source these. And then we built all the gamification, all the things to engage the human workforce. As Brad pointed out to me the other day, that humans need to be motivated, they need encouragement, they take vacations, they get distracted. And so we make errors also, because we're not designed to do repetitive work every day. We like creativity in that. And so we've built all those mechanisms to measure the human quality, keep them engaged, source them to solve the human part of the problem. And then that's how we can guarantee quality and make setup seamless. And a lot of AI has gone into how you combine results from multiple AI and human to guarantee that quality. It's not a trivial problem. And others will say, hey, yeah, we'll just combine and we'll vote on those model, or simple, average out the performance. But that's not doing justice to the work. And we build all those underpinnings and created an open platform where we can pick the best model, best humans, and guarantee quality and give you a business ready enterprise scale application in days. It's a promise a lot of people make, but I think we are delivering it today. That makes it very exciting.
Yeah, I think the platform approach that you've taken is unique. I haven't seen that before. There's no doubt about that. And you're right about the human component and being missed out, right? We kind of thought, oh, we're going to automate all of this rubbish work away from everybody. Now, I'm still a firm believer that there's a lot of rubbish work that we do. And I think a lot of people listening in would agree, right? We do loads of rubbish work that doesn't add any value. It's just getting data. All we're doing is moving data around. So, and we've got a problem because we've got massive skill shortages, right? And we have to give people the tools to do the best job that they can, rather than doing the best job that they can with the existing tool set and more work and less people to do it. So we have to use technology to be able to do that. And I think the approach of combining the two together is really powerful. Reminds me, Gary Kasparov said, the only reason we're around to complain about technology is because of technology. And when he lost to Big Blue back in the day, he started studying, why did I lose? And he said the technology is just amazing. That computer, you've got more power on your iPhone. We've all heard that story. But he ran a few chess tournaments afterwards where it was combined human and technology working together. And it was a group of, he said they weren't very good, but, Gary Kasparov's not very good at chess. Is probably brilliant for most of us. But it was a group of 3 guys who just used the average computers, or the average computing power that you get from a chess computer for free on the internet. And they won the tournament because it was 3 minds versus 3 artificial minds combined actually produces better results. So, there's a lot of anecdotes to say that this is a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do for us. But I think one of the challenges has always been how we combine this together and how we take people on the journey and let them know that this is a tool. It's not replacing you, right? It's not a human brain. And although we all think it's AI, real AI, we're still a little bit way off before before the Terminator. So.
And another thing, sorry, I wanted to talk about this, that the biggest problem we have with documents is invoices, and people have been tackling it for 30 plus years trying to solve it. And when I talk to most of the people, getting to 60% automation is very easy because There's some high volume invoices that have certain format you can configure. You can either create templates or train AI to do that. But what overwhelms people after that is all the new invoices that keep coming in, new formats that you have to keep tuning the system to accommodate for these changes. And AI is a complex beast right now today. If you don't design it correctly, your models drift. Your models actually, many times the performance goes down over time as the new formats come, and you don't take into account all the variance and outliers properly in how you're building the model. So my point is, when you have automated 60%, you still have 40% where humans are looking at it, and how you efficiently you use the humans and leverage the learnings from those humans to get to 80%, 85% becomes critical to how much you can automate.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to Michael, we went into a bit of a hole, but it's an interesting hole, and thanks very much for the demo. I think it's really, you've got a really interesting proposition going on there.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That was very interesting. So I have a confession to make. I can't sing, and I don't think I'm unusual. I think a lot of people can't sing, and there's something that's always puzzled me, because whenever you listen to a crowd singing at a rock concert, or a crowd singing at a football match, they tend to sing in tune. I thought that was very strange, that, because I don't think many people can sing in tune. And there's a reason for that. And I think the explanation goes back to 1906, when a chap called Francis Galton, who was a mathematician, an all-round clever clogs with some dodgy views on eugenics, and he visited a livestock fair. And there was a guess the weight of an ox competition at that fair, and I'm just checking here. It turns out that the average weight of the weight of the ox was 1,198 pounds, and something like 800 people had a go at guessing it, and no one got it right. But Galton took the average of all those guesses, and it turned out that the average was less than a pound away from the correct amount, and it was by far and away the most accurate estimate. And that's wisdom of crowds. That's why football crowds appear to sing in tune, because while some people might sing too high and some people might sing too low, on average they're about right. I think it's a similar kind of principle applying here to what you are doing, Brad?
Yeah, definitely. So we see this phenomenon in a lot of different areas. The classic one is measuring the weight, but people have also used that to find submarines. There was a Scorpion submarine that was lost, and they took the greatest experts, the greatest physicists to find it, and no one could find it. But what they did is when they did a Bayesian posterior, or when they just, I'll just be more simple. Sorry, when they just took the average of all their estimates, it was like exactly where the Scorpion has sunk, and so this works really well under. But there's 4 assumptions that it needs to work well. So there needs to be a diversity of opinions. So everyone needs to have kind of local information. They need to be independent. It needs to be decentralized, and then there needs to kind of be an aggregation mechanism and trust to do that, because along with wisdom of the crowds is like madness of the crowds and groupthink. And so when you don't have these assumptions satisfied, then instead of wisdom, it turns into madness. And so there's all these stories, but to make it work, you need to, a lot of the work is in making sure that these assumptions are satisfied. But it is a very powerful thing. And also speaking about mathematicians, there was Jean d'Orsay during the French Revolution. He formed his jury theorem because they were trying to figure out what is fair. Like if a jury says someone's guilty, is it worse to put an innocent person in jail or to let a guilty person free? And so they were using a lot of math to solve this. And he found a similar conclusion in juries that if you have people who are independent, again, that's a similar assumption, and they're above random, as the number of people approaches infinity, their accuracy approaches 100% accuracy. And so we just took this idea, which appears in many different forms, and we took it to the next level, and made it very practical. And we've also actually created some theorems around it as well.
So I'm just going to jump in, Michael, if you don't. That's really interesting, the jury piece. And I hadn't thought of that before, right? That you've almost going to come to a conclusion of fairness at some stage. So juries, that makes juries much more much fairer, let's say, than a single judge with a bias or whatever the case might be. Okay, and that of course returns with the more data that comes into the system, the more accurate you can become, because you have more data points to be able to reference output. So
yeah, for example, if you were going to create a new country and you had new rules of law, like you can make the outcomes of courts way more accurate. But yeah, that's a whole other
we're a bit
conversation.
stuck. Yeah, we're not going to change the judicial system on a webinar, but it would be worth a shot, maybe. Yeah.
I guess it's a kind of diversity argument as well. You know, the more diverse the crowd, the wiser it is. Which I suppose plays into AI bias as well. Okay, so Brad, is that what you mean by a unified AI platform?
It's a piece of it, but there's kind of two. So I mentioned this earlier, but there's two pieces of this. One is you can use any worker, so you can use humans, AI, RPA software bots, and the AI can come from wherever. You can use Google's, Amazon's, open source, your own. You can use statistics. You can use expert systems, or you can use any human, for example. So you can use BPOs, you can use your own humans. We have a crowd of humans around the world with varying skill sets. Or you can use any software functions, whether it's regular expressions, RPA bots. So that's a half of it. You can use any worker, and it unifies all that. And then the second is you can use any application. So you can extract documents, you can redact people's faces out of videos, you can classify products and create taxonomies all in a single platform. And it allows you to start with a high level of automation, but then in addition, customize that to you. And then it's easy to integrate. We don't want people, even though it's really powerful and we can prove that super easily, but sometimes the practical piece of just integrating it or adopting something new is a lot of work. And so we make it also easy to integrate into your existing systems, use your existing humans, use your existing RPA or whatever you have. So that's what we mean by the unified platform.
Okay, so there's a more general question. So where's automation technology going? Both in the next few years, and if you could get your crystal balls out, maybe looking a little bit further beyond that. Theories, ideas? Brad?
Yeah, so well, in a lot of ways, there's automation all around us, right? Like we also have different parts of our brains that you could even consider automation. So I have my neocortex, which is my higher level cognition, but then I have the limbic system in my brain, which like I don't need to think about my heart beating, or like it controls my muscles or my spinal cord. So a lot of it is automated, right? Like there's a lot of stuff in my body that feels effortless. And in a lot of ways, these are kind of different computers in my head. They just have a high bandwidth of communication. And we just kind of see this thing as outside of us, but in the end, it's also a part of us. And the bandwidth is the bandwidth I can use my thumbs to connect to that, and it's a lower bandwidth. And so I see the future as essentially just increasing the bandwidth between these different systems, like increasing the bandwidth between our phones, increasing the bandwidth to our AI, increasing the bandwidth to our computers. And I think that's a long-term view, but that's what I see as the future of automation. And we wrote a piece on where we see 2022 automation, and we can go to a lot of detail there, but high level, that's where I see it.
If you look in the automation world, we've been talking for a few years. The Holy Grail is that you have AI that's probably observing what's happening inside the enterprise and piecing it together to find how the business processes work and how they deviate from the norm in what instances. And that's what we call process mining or task mining or process discovery. And where we want to be is that have a closed loop. We are constantly observing the business processes, finding opportunities to optimize, and then we're creating a platform that can automatically create an application to automate that business process. Today, the vision is that, hey, that application is going to be an RPA bot which handles structured data. Tomorrow, I think it'll be that applications combine the best of human AI and bots to automate that business processes and really streamline your costs and delight your customers. And that's where it needs to move in the future, where it's a seamless process. Today, it requires a lot of hand-holding, a lot of work on everybody to make it possible. But I think in 10 years, hopefully, it'll be a lot more automated. The process of automating processes will become a lot more automated and streamlined.
Meta automation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see more automation creating automations. So understanding where where the blockages are and saying, hey, we need to, there's a better way to fix this, or there's a new way to fix this. I also see an acceptance of standardization. For many years, I think companies created lots of customizable linkages and codes and whatever else to make things work. And then ERP came along, and you've got process in a box to a large degree, and it's compliant, so you get a stamp for it. The problem with that is everybody's in the same box, and your operations are not a competitive advantage. And that you look at the best companies in the world now, every part of their business is optimized. Data flows, it's very efficient. Things are automated as best they can. Think of Amazon, and they treat the supply chain as a competitive advantage. It's just, and that's really all it is. Every part of that business is optimized, and as Brad pointed out, we really just are extensions of our technology, or a technology as extensions of what we want to try and do and how we want to process stuff. And as we start to integrate with that more, and there's more demand, and we get more comfortable with it, right? I think people are much more comfortable with AI today than they were 5 years ago. If you'd mentioned it, I know when I first started looking at this, that picture of the Terminator was flying around the whole internet saying the robots are coming. Now people look at it and laugh, right? They think, because they know what reality is. I think they've come to terms with it. So I think that's going to happen, and I'm very excited for it, because I do think we've been lumped with a lot of really rubbish work, and a lot of people take the short end of the stick for that, and end up doing work that we could have automated years ago, and we should have automated years ago. And I'm hoping that we uncover the next Einstein as a result of it as well, because I think there's lots of lost potential, just the way that we're set up, and we lose a lot of potential in brain power and how we think about things. Michael, what do you think? Because I know you're very keen on the autonomous vehicles and the whole idea of an automated travel system across the world. I suppose that would be your ideal.
I think that if autonomous cars take off, and I believe they will probably later this decade, beginning next, it'll be the most profound impact on the global economy. It will do to the global economy what the car did to the horse, because we will move to the sharing of cars, and that's going to completely disrupt one of the most important sectors for the global economy, car manufacturing industry, and I think it will be absolutely massive. And maybe, but on the subject of will we find through AI, will it help us find the next day Einstein? Maybe he'll be able to explain to us a little bit more about string theory if we do. I think I know how Gollum feels. You know how Gollum from Lord of the Rings, how he had his precious, my precious, and I kind of feel like that about my iPhone. It's sort of it always feels like it's a part of me. And I think someone said that we are like cyborgs now. We're half human, half smart. And is that the future? Is the future of AI that, but more so? Will become even more integrated with our machine, and hopefully not in the way that Gollum was integrated with the ring.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think even like I kind of mentioned my view on that. Maybe I'll take a different view and kind of start with Adam Smith about he analyzed what made countries successful and why some countries were poor. And one of his big conclusions was specialization of labor. You can try to do everything yourself. You can go get water yourself, go hunt, and but if I specialize and then I trade with you, well, everybody is better off. And so when we tamed plants and had agriculture, well, you just look at the spike in kind of every measurable quality of life metric. When we tamed animals to farm and to transport, similar thing. When we tamed electrons so that we can do electricity, it's the same thing. And so I see the taming of AI or artificial intelligence as another step, and you just see this sociologically. Like a few hundred years ago, we would all be farmers, right? Like 95% of people were farmers. There was no weekends, and now today, I think it's only like 3 or 4% of the economy are farmers, and now we can do higher level things. And so, I think the taming and merging of every species, whether the species AI or software, animals or plants, it allows us to be more human in a way that's special to us. And I think we as humans love being around other humans. We love having empathy, creativity, and we can outsource the things that plants are good at. We can outsource the things that AI is good at, and it allows us to all be more specialized. And I think the kind of root word or etymology of specialize is special, which in my opinion is a great thing. And of course, it's not without challenges, but I think long term, it's where we should move as a species.
Yeah, very interesting. So I think Adam Smith, I was thinking of The Wealth of Nations, wasn't it, when he wrote that? I think it was 1776, if I remember correctly. And one of the examples he gave was of a pin factory. If an individual was making a pin, they'd get absolutely nowhere. But if you get different people specializing in different parts of the process, then you can churn out the pin by the thousands a day. And that was 240 years ago, I suppose. And maybe we're taking that argument to its logical conclusion with AI and technology, maybe. Okay, just one more point about future-proofing. Back in the 1980s, there was a computer called the Enterprise, and I actually remember it quite well. And it was a really impressive piece of kit, which never went anywhere. Probably no one's ever heard of it now, I would imagine, but it was. Take my word for it. It was an impressive computer, and it had the slogan "Obsolescence built out." Quite ironic, because I think that computer is completely obsolete today. But I think that one of the things that Super.AI talks about is future-proofing, or at least de-risking the adoption of AI. Is that right? And can you expand upon that?
Yeah. So one of our assumptions of why we built the platform the way we did is we view the actual AI model as a commodity, and we see it changing almost every month. I don't think people realize how quickly the field of AI is growing, and how many innovations there are. It's exponential, and our human brains work on a linear scale, and so our view was if we spent all of our effort trying to make the best AI model today, well, tomorrow we're going to be out of business. And then if you couple that with Google, Amazon, and Facebook, they're spending $4 billion every year doing this. And so we realized that if we're having that problem, everyone's going to have that problem. And so we decided to build the protocol and the platform to take AI models and build AI applications, because that is the thing that's going to be valuable long term. And as a side effect, it future-proofs you, allows you to always have the best. And no matter what technology comes out, whether there's some new symbolic AI or new machine learning model, well, because we built the protocol in the right level of abstraction, you can use all of this, and you don't need to change your system. And this is only possible because of AI and the properties of AI. If we try to do this with software, well, it wouldn't work. And just like when the internet came out, there was new business models like platforms and network effects and new jobs like the chief information officer. The same thing is true in the world of AI. There's new business models, for example, the one we're pursuing, new roles, chief data officer, all these things. And so that's what allows this to be possible.
Yeah, I mean, today I'm beginning to see roles of chief automation officer or chief intelligent automation officer show up. When we started, Rob, in this industry, almost the GBS used to report most of the time into the CFO or CIO or some other function. And I saw the SSON report that came out that 30% of them report to the CEO directly. So the role of intelligent automation and how you harness AI, humans, and software to build a more agile organization and digitize your processes is becoming much more strategic and important. And that's why the leaders are reporting directly to CEO today compared to where they were maybe 5 years or a decade ago.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, I think it's actually table stakes now. I still hear the term digital transformation, and I'm scratching my head thinking, when were you created and where have you been? Because I think all companies are digital to a large degree now. Certain aspects of their delivery or their structure is not digital. And then they've got to step back and say, and understand what is the potential for all of this, right? Because I have all of this stuff connected, because I have all of this data that I can't capture. If I captured it, what's the potential? What's the opportunity? And I think companies just have to do this nowadays, right? They have to modernize really quickly. If you were building a business today, you would build it very, very differently than you would 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But they're still stuck with a lot of that infrastructure. And the quicker they can move away from that, the more competitive advantage they gain. And we see that across every industry and every company that's using technology for this type of work, right?
And I agree. And Michael, your quote reminded me of Michael Levitt. I think he said something like, to survive, companies have to plot the obsolescence of what currently provides their likelihood. And so I think planning out what could kill you tomorrow and integrating that is really powerful.
Yeah. On the roles, actually, the best role I've heard is chief disruption officer. And because their job is to disrupt yourself, because if you don't, somebody else is going to, right? So staying ahead of your own disruption is a good idea to say that's not good enough. There's a different way to do it. So trying to break everything is sounds like my kind of job, actually.
I think that should be the CEO. Because I feel if you have a role for it, no one's going to listen to them.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. They need an enforcement title. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. One of the phrases I heard there, in order to resist the dangers of disruptive technology, is to cannibalize or be eaten. So, Blockbusters might have said, no, we don't want to have some videos for which we don't collect fines, because then we'll be cannibalizing our own product. But actually that was their own downfall. And there are many examples of that. And I suppose a less glamorous version is to disrupt or be disrupted. Or as somebody once said to me, if it's not broken, break it.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's been really very, very interesting. And so I think we've heard about why humans are AI's dirty little secret. I think we've heard about a unified AI platform and how the wisdom of crowds, when those crowds include AI algorithms and when they include humans, can be very, very powerful. And we've talked a little bit about, the future as well. And unstructured data is perhaps one of the big challenges of the next decade or two. And I know, Rob and Manish, you both have a background working in RPA, so which I think overlaps with what we're talking quite a lot. Do you have anything else to add in that context at all?
I mean, I would say one thing. In Salesforce was started in 1999, and they came out with a campaign in 2000 saying "End of Software." And at the end of that year, they did 5 million in revenue out of that, and that was the beginning of the SaaS revolution. I'd like to posit that we are entering the phase of end of unstructured data. So as AI matures over the next 10 years, the line between structured and unstructured data will blur, and we won't think of them as different because humans don't make that distinction, structured, unstructured. It's all data and we process it. And 10 years from now, we won't even think about this. And so we are starting on that disruptive journey of processing on all kinds of data in a single platform.
So that's unsend, unstructured data send. Does that work out? I think it might do. Okay, well, that's been very, very interesting. Have anybody got anything else to add before we close?
I just want to say, look, thanks very much, Manish and Brad, for joining us. This has been really interesting. I love the take on string theory, as I'm sure many will, who don't understand it either, right? So, my best reference is the Big Bang Theory, and that's it. So, but yeah, it's been really, really interesting. I think you guys are doing something really exciting. And I'm just wondering, I'm just going to see if anybody wants to get in touch with Super.AI. You're going to have to use Manish as your point of contact. But I've seen there's quite a few comments and so on about how we get in touch and whether or not certain data pools can be accessed and how you can integrate with you. So I'm just sharing the details now, and if not, please get in touch with us at Techopian and we can marry you up. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it, and I think
this video, there is a recording of this which we will be putting on YouTube and on our website, and we'll be doing an article based on this as well. So there will be more information to follow.
Great.
That was fun, guys. And if anybody watching has any questions, reach out to Manish. Don't email me because my email never gets checked.
And also on our website, you can book a demo, and we can definitely have our people get on and give you more detailed insight onto our platform.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manish. Rob.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for dialing in.
Ciao.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.